Okay, we are back. So first I just want to talk about, there's really two classes of stock. We're going to talk about common stock and preferred stock. So common stock, as we talked about in a prior video, that's like your basic voters, regular stock. It's just kind of like the plain Jane stock. Okay, your preferred stock is really more of an investment vehicle. So when you buy preferred stock, it's because you are expecting to get paid a certain dividend, and so you're expecting to get a certain amount of cash flow. So there's also, I think we're going to talk about, we'll talk about in a later video some of the things you don't get as a preferred shareholder. But for now, just know that those are the two we're going to talk about: common stock and preferred stock. Okay. Within common stock, we can have par value common stock. You remember par value now from the bonds. This is a different kind of par value. We can have par value, we can have no par value, or we can have stated value. Okay. Par value, most stock that I've seen is par value. Par value, it's assigned in the charter. So when I apply to incorporate in whatever state I'm doing that in, I say, hey, I want to sell 10 million. I would like to be authorized to sell 10 million shares of $1 par value common stock, $2 par value common stock. If you look in your financial statements on the balance sheet, it should tell you what the par value is. Most public companies that I've seen have 1 penny par value common stock. Now you're like, that's crazy, you can't buy stock for a penny. It's not what you're going to sell it for, it's just the par value, because the par value determines your minimum legal capital. So if I have issued 100 shares and I have a $1 par value, then my minimum legal capital is $100. 100 shares times $1 par value, $100 minimum legal capital. That means that's the minimum amount of equity I have to maintain. And I can't pay out dividends unless I have more than $100 in equity. Okay, so the minimum legal capital, obviously companies want to keep that as small as possible. Not that they're going to maintain a lot more of a reserve, but they don't want to be legally prohibited from doing things because, you know, of really high par value. And that's why you see a lot of them are only a penny. But so par value, it's just in our corporate, it's part of our authorization from the state. You're authorized to sell 10 million shares at $1 par value, $2 par value, 1 penny par value, whatever. Okay, no par value stock has no par value. So I can incorporate and say I'd like to sell 10 million shares of stock. I'd like to be authorized to sell 10 million shares of stock, and it's not going to have a par value. That means whatever you sell the stock for becomes your minimum value. So if I sell the stock for more than what I would have picked for a par value, say a penny or a dollar or whatever, then that becomes my minimum. All right, stated value is basically just like par value, except instead of putting the par value in the corporate charter, the stated value is assigned by the board of directors. So you start up the company, you say, I want to sell 10 million shares of stock. It's not going to have a par value. The state goes, okay, there you go, you're a corporation. Your board of directors gets together at the first meeting and they say, hey, our stated value is going to be $1 a share. Our stated value is going to be a penny a share, whatever it is. The mechanics, and we're going to go through an example of journal entries, is going to look very, very similar. All right, so that is par value stock, no par value stock, and stated value stock. And the next thing we're going to do is go through some examples, and then we're going to talk about preferred stock. So I will see you then.